Okay, and the two became three. What we have in the physics terminology could be, we've started with a quantum entity, which is a quantum field, which cannot be described as establishing reality. That's the quantum weirdness. Until you actually observe a quantum state, it isn't really real. It isn't even, establishing the existence of a particle, only the possibility of one, so to speak. And again, I'm not going to go on and on about it. It's something that quantum weirdness you can find out about in millions of different places on the internet. But we start with, first thing I think that happened was the quantum thing came out of the vacuum, some initial quantum field, and then for the two to become three, we get another thing coming out of the vacuum, a different thing. And this is the other major part of modern physics and cosmology and just, all of reality. We have quantum mechanics and we have general relativity, which describes space and time. And so some precursor space and time thing came out of the vacuum and bam, somehow just in a random good luck moment, actually it isn't a moment because we haven't created time yet until this event happens, but in a random encounter where the space-time general relativity precursor object interacted with the quantum object, and out comes what, to make it real quick and easy, let's just go, in my blog I've talked about this space-time thing being a particle pair, a squeezer and a balloon, an expander, and the two of them combined are nothing, just like a quantum field not being observed is nothing, or not being interacting with anything is nothing. So combined, you get something. Bam! And what you get, the most straightforward interpretation from what we know about physics, is that this squeezer squeezed the quantum entity into such a high energy, high concentration state that it initiated, because this squeezer carries with it the rules governing some precursor idea of general relativity. It squeezed things into a state which physicists call inflation. Some call it the false vacuum, because it's just such an intense higher level energy state from the vacuum, and yet it behaves in some sense like a vacuum, in that, at least that's, again, physics can't even explain really what happened with this inflation process. But the bottom line is, and I've talked about this before, and I'll introduce videos that maybe I haven't yet posted to talk about it some more, but inflation essentially expands space in a vastly rapid rate, much faster than the speed of light, and that actually is critical. And I won't even go into that yet. That's another level of depth of the discussion. But the two became three. The three was inflation, which produced the Big Bang. It basically exploded and produced what we see as a result that looks like it was a Big Bang, an explosion. Back to the Tao Te Ching, or actually back to Chinese folklore and mythology. The two became three. The general relativity and the quantum entity merged and produced this massive explosion called inflation that started the universe rolling. So that's the physics explanation. 2,500 years ago, in a book called The Classic of Mountains and Seas, there's a story in Chinese folklore that basically depicts what they say happened. And that was a cosmic egg. The two, the yin and yang, in order to keep them apart, they hatched a cosmic egg out of which came this primordial creature, Pangu. And his task was to keep them apart, to hold basically yin and yang apart. And in that mythology, it was the sky and the ground. So Pangu popped out of the cosmic egg and hatched. The inflation explosion happened. And then Pangu was tasked with holding up the sky, standing on the ground and holding up the sky. And the legend says that he grew. Every day he grew 10 feet. Every day the sky grew 10 feet higher away from the earth. Every day the earth went 10 feet wider and bigger. And very much parallel to what's happening with inflation. The universe just becomes massively bigger, massively quickly. So Pangu, coming out of the cosmic egg, basically describes what, as well as what physics talks about. And, you know, again, it's just all storytelling. It's not observable, never will be. Basically is intrinsically not observable, but something like that happened. And inflation we have evidence for. And Pangu, well, we don't have evidence for him, but he's a metaphor for the inflation. And then I've thrown out a metaphor that humorously explains how what started the Big Bang could have been almost anything. And so I've talked about when the two became three, when the cosmic egg hatched, what we actually had was the primordial rabbit hole coming out of the vacuum, of the big V vacuum. Out comes a bazillion Easter bunnies, pink Easter bunnies, roaring out of the hole. Instead of, inflation, instead of particles that we've described and know about, the first thing that came were Easter bunnies. Why not? You cannot. They are not ruled out. And that's the fun part of this discussion, is the comfortable universe is a story that you can play with. You can, you don't have to take it all that seriously. It'll help describe the real hard physics the best we know, and always will, but it always also will have uncertainty and unknowability. And you cannot deny that. Science doesn't want to even bother with that kind of stuff, but it's there. It fills empty space where no knowledge is known. No knowledge can be gleaned because it's beyond the observable realm. And I don't think anyone will argue that there are things that we can't observe, which, like the virtual particles, actually are somehow relevant to our reality. All right, anyhow, so you know, the cosmic Easter bunny coming out of the rabbit hole starts creating, you know, he throws stuff into a pot. Maybe he comes out with some food with him or whatever, you know, to keep him alive. The cosmic Easter bunny throws stuff into a pot, stirs and mixes it up, and out comes the world. And that is the fourth line of Tao Te Ching, chapter 42. The three, after the two became three, the three becomes everything that we observe and know about. All of the material things. And of course the immaterial things are there too. And the only difference that the Tao Te Ching says about that is that they are the things that can't or haven't been named. And again, that goes right back to quantum physics. Something that hasn't been observed is sort of an immaterial thing. All right, I think that's more than enough for this first installment of hard discussion rather than just introductory stuff. How we came to be, or how our first primordial ancestor, the equivalent of the first life form on Earth, how it came to be. That's the song of everything. So I'll talk to you again and we'll have a lot more. Take care. Bye-bye.